Bobby Kotick, who is the CEO of Activision Blizzard, the publisher of games like Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, received a $200 million bonus just a day after the company announced mass layoffs. And Bernie Sanders may at least have part of the solution to this. So there's a lot to this story. Let's first start by giving you some more details here. This is Bobby Kotick looking pretty happy here, getting his $200 million. Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick routinely gets millions in stock bonuses every year based on how the company is doing. Now he's set to get even more for a total payout of nearly $200 million, according to CTW Investment Group, a union pension fund advocacy organization. And it's all thanks to a clause in his contract that was recently triggered by the company's strong stock performance throughout the pandemic. So people have been playing a lot of games during the pandemic for obvious reasons, stuck at home. And that has increased Activision Blizzard's stock price to a point where he is now receiving a $200 million bonus. While the pandemic has made Kotick even richer, it hasn't put an end to layoffs at Activision Blizzard. The company laid off roughly 800 people in early 2019, followed by hundreds more in the subsequent months, the closing of its French office, and just yesterday, the day before the story, that somewhere between 50 and 190 more people would be let go, including in its esports division, which has struggled over the last year during the ban on in-person gaming events. So here you have Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick making $200 million while laying off over 1,000 employees. And this is very normal in the gaming industry. The gaming industry is notoriously one of the worst, has one of the worst turnover rates of around 15.5%, one of the worst turnover rates in any tech industry. And of course, the gaming industry is known for unpaid overtime. 80 to 100-hour work weeks are normal during crunch time. And crunch time is sort of used as a badge of honor. It's sold to workers as a badge of honor for you to work that much, that often, for you to, completely ignore your family for months on end before the release of a game. Perfectly normal. And in fact, it's really cool of you to do that. When in reality, no. We're talking about essentially slave labor. People working, not getting paid for extra hours, working insane hours, completely destroying their personal lives, their friendships, their families. And it goes on and on. And part of the major reasons, of course, is a lack of unions. So this is a story from a couple months ago, January 2021. The rise of one of the first video game workers' unions. One of the first. Video games have been around for 40 years. We're only now talking about one of the first unions in the video game industry. This is the main reason why workers are mistreated in this industry, because they don't have an actual group to advocate for them. Now, a little more details here. So this other story in Wired gives you many various experiences from workers in the games industry and how this has impacted their life and what they've experienced in working in the industry. So this one experience here from Emily Buck, who worked at Telltale, which laid off hundreds of employees in 2018, said that in her time in the games industry, she's needed to work more than 80-hour weeks to meet deadlines, sometimes for months on end, and feared losing her job, being demoted, or having her project canceled. Quote, with a union, it's not to say those things wouldn't happen, but there would be channels to report and handle them. Instead, game devs like me often live in fear that if we speak up or try to improve our situation, we'll lose our jobs or, at the very least, our reputations. So not only are unions rare or almost non-existent in the games industry, but it's also frowned upon for you to complain about poor working conditions. Because I covered the game industry long before I was into politics. And there is this sense of you should feel grateful to be able to work on video games. So because you feel so grateful to work in this industry, then we get to treat you like shit. And this is totally normal in the industry. Those 80 to 100-hour work weeks is across the board for every publisher. This is what they do. They have this crunch time. Essentially, it's mismanagement. So because management couldn't properly suss out how to actually develop this game on time for release without having crunch time, they leave it to the last minute, force everyone to work 100-hour weeks, and then ultimately it destroys lives, destroys families because of it. Now, Bernie Sanders, this is where he comes in, potentially here, at least part of the solution. Of course, the PRO Act, which would increase unions and strengthen unions, would be a major part of this, of improving working conditions in the games industry. But another part here is potentially a greedy CEO tax. So Wall Street Journal here, Bernie Sanders will introduce legislation that would seek to apply an additional tax on corporations where the CEO is paid more than 50 times the median worker. So this is what his legislation does. So Sanders' bill would raise the corporate tax rate from companies with gross receipts of over $100 million a year, where the chief executive is earning anything more than 50 times the median worker. The tax increase on top of the existing 21% corporate tax rate would add 0.5% if the company were paying the CEO at a ratio of 50 to 1. The increase would top out at 5% if the CEO earns more than 500 times that of the median worker. And oftentimes, a CEO being paid more than 50 to 1 is the norm across the board, not just in tech, but across the board. CEOs make much more now than 50 to 1 of their average employee. And if you go back, that's obviously increased over time, especially during the 80s. There was a massive increase in CEO pay compared to worker pay. And that has only increased and gotten much worse for workers and much better for CEOs. So a greedy CEO tax, definitely part of the solution here. That I assume also would apply to bonuses as well, because that's often a loophole of how CEOs get away with this, is they're paid a quote unquote modest salary for the year, but then they get bonuses that are worth much more than their salary. Bobby Kotick, I believe, I'm not sure if it's in this piece or not, but he makes, I think, $30 million a year as a CEO of Activision Blizzard. So this $200 million bonus is multiple of his actual salary. So just showing you how completely absurd this is. And these sorts of layoffs, or this sort of bonus while you're laying off employees, I mean, it shows you the kind of rot that exists in the games industry.